Hey y'all, I'm back. This is La Zuliana, the Angel of Louisiana. Okay, so I'm back to continue what I've been trying to say, but I'm gonna try to make it clear. I'm gonna try to go from the beginning straight forward. So, like I've been saying, um, Louisiana and Mississippi were the first two tribes in America. Now, what I mean by that is there were two distinct, different groups of people in the beginning. And in the beginning, Louisiana was the people that was from Sirius. Mississippi were the people from Orion. These people later on in life became known as Egyptians and Mayans, right? Okay. So the Egyptians were in the Louisiana area. The Mayans were in the Mississippi area. Now these were the areas of Louisiana and Mississippi along the Gulf, right? Around the water. So Louisiana and Mississippi were later called Egyptians and Mayans. Now, before they was called Egyptians and Mayans, these two tribal tribal groups of people. They lived around the water of the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, and this is why I say it's good that Donald Trump called it the of America, because it is really the Gulf of the Americas. But also, is because we can use the Gulf of America to explain the North American side of the Gulf and Gulf of Mexico to explain the South American side of the Gulf. Okay, so um, these two groups of people lived along the Gulf, right? Now, at some point, these two groups started coming together and merging. Their children were marrying each other, and they became known as the Americans. They became known as the Americans. They still had their distinct tribes, but they still had um, some of the tribes started mixing together to make this one big family called Americans. Okay, now the unique background for each of those two groups of people is that the Louisiana people had the what we know today of as Egyptian culture, and the Mississippi people had the what we know of as Mayan culture. And so I'm gonna start with Louisiana first. Now, Louisiana, a lot of people don't know. See, when people learn about ancient Egypt, they learn about they usually start learning about Osiris and Isis, or Asar and Aset and Heru, and down the line, that time frame. But most people don't go from the beginning to like the pre-dynastic, proto-dynastic. This is the point before the pyramids was built. So this is the time frame when they had mounds, and then the first pyramids actually started being built in the first dynasty. In the first dynasty, and in the first dynasty, they were the pharaohs. Now, the interesting thing about the word pharaoh is pharaoh come from the same source as what we in Louisiana call Paran, right? Paran. That's the same thing as a pharaoh. A lot nobody don't know this stuff. That's what I'm saying. So if you hearing somebody else talk about this, they didn't got it from me. They didn't got it from me. Period. As far as this, yeah, everybody know that Louisiana might have a connection. They know that America have a connection to Egypt, but me giving this detailed information about Louisiana, if you heard it from somebody, they didn't took it from me. Period. So anyway, uh, the pharaoh, what we call Paran in New Orleans, which means Godfather, is where they get the word pharaoh from. Okay, so the first pharaohs, like I did a video a couple of months ago, y'all might have saw it, where I was saying that the first pharaohs of Egypt was Cash Money Records. Go back and look at my videos that I was talking about that. I'm telling you, it makes sense. Like the reason why the guys from Cash Money um were able to blow up so big is because they was coming back to return music back to its origins. And so in its origins, back in those times, these bloodlines of the first American people in Louisiana came back online to represent. And so that's how we end up getting Mia X. That's how we end up getting Cash Money. That's how we end up getting DJ Jubilee, Desharay. All of them were involved in some of these older lineages, and their names actually, they were named what they were named to be a reminder to the subconscious of who they were, to try to awaken people. It's just that nobody didn't get it. But that's what I'm giving, that I'm trying to bring that knowledge to y'all. Even with No Limit Records, you know what I'm saying? Master P, his name is a code word for Mastaba. Mastaba, that's an Egyptian um tomb. So Master P is a word for Mastaba. C Murder. C in his name, C represents the sea, SEA. And murder, MUR, Mur represents the waters of Mu, and Der represents TER, Ter, which is territory. So C Murder's name means um the territory of the Moors of the sea, right? Mastaba, Master P, that means um that's a word for an ancient tomb of a person of nobility, a high rank, right? Even in New Orleans, our projects in New Orleans is named after what they call muses. The Calliope, which is Calliope, the Melpomene, Melpomene, you know what I'm saying? These are names of muses, right? So when you see that MU in muses, and you see when you look into, like, if people doing what they call Native American research or Indigenous American research, you're gonna see this word called Muskogee in regards to the language. That's not even a real word. Muskogee is a cover cloak word for musical genes. It's not Muskogeen, it's musical gene. So that's the truth about the word Muskogee. Okay. So all of that MU is connected to the waters of Mu. And the people of Mu are in Louisiana, and they are in the they're mostly in or from Louisiana, Mississippi area, because the waters of Mu is right there by the Gulf of Mexico, right? So when you hear the stories about us coming from Atlantis or Lemuria, you're talking about the Gulf of Mexico, and you're talking about the waters around Louisiana and Mississippi. You're talking about Atlantis. The Atlantis story, is just the Egyptian version of the same story with the Lemurians. So the Lemurian is a name. It's like the same name. It's basically representing the same source of water on different levels. Okay, so it was called Lemuria first. It was called Lemuria first. Then it was called Atlantis. I'm sorry, Atlantis. Okay, so the people from Lemuria and Atlantis came up from the water. You know what I'm saying? They came from the water. And I'm gonna do another video where I tell you what the exact water is. Okay, and so those two, when they was on the land, there was these two areas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and they went around the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, Mississippi is responsible for a whole lot of the genetic information, and Louisiana is responsible for a whole lot of the culture, the things that represent the culture of our people. Okay, so That's why a lot of people from Louisiana, Mississippi have, are related, because these were the first two groups. Now, from those groups mixing and mixing and mixing, you got the first Creole people. You got the very first Creole people by those two groups mixing. Um, Now, Creole, as we know it later, came down the line to be something a little bit different later, but that was after the creation of the other worlds. Now, you might have to go back and listen to another video I did explaining the worlds, the different worlds, to understand what I'm talking about. But there are at least four worlds, four completed worlds, but we are from the first world, right? And so our information was being taken from the first world and put into other world narratives. This is the real story about the slave trade. This is the true story about the slave trade, is when they took our story and our information, our genetic information that they took from us through medical procedures and stuff like that, through excavating graves, all kind of stuff. They took that and put the information that they learned into created stories. I'm sorry, specifically Africa, the third world. Africa, the third world, is where they completely took our whole story and just kind of recreated it to be an origin story. Now, when we get back to Louisiana, um, we known for the Choctaw language. You know what I'm saying? And parts of Choctaw is Chitimacha. They have a couple of little groups of our language, but we represent the sound of the people. We represent the sound. We are a people of sound. And so our sound is one of the most important parts of our culture. So as ancient Egyptians, our sound is represented um, by our voice, and our voice is represented with what ancient Egypt called the was. So voice is was, was. And so in ancient Egypt, you'll find this scepter called the was scepter, and that represents the a part of it represents our microphone. Basically, it represents our mic our ability to speak power. That's what the Y scepter is, right? And it's symbolic of I'll post something to show you how it's symbolic to our body, right? So it's like our voice, the power within our voice. That's why Louisiana is known for music. Um, that's why Louisiana is known. We go viral with our sound. We go viral with our accent. We go viral with the sound of our music. We go viral with our dance because of that. So, the Y scepter of ancient Egypt is our microphone, and it's a symbol of our power. Now, I did another video talking about how bounce music is related to our power. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I've talked about how one of the most powerful ones right now is hot sizzle. So I'm bouncing, I'm jumping from place to place because this is so much stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of annoyed, to be honest, because like I have so many people that's watching what I'm saying, that's seeing, hearing what I'm saying. But you know how typically people will hear what you're saying, they will engage with what you say, or they will share your post, or they will like it and stuff like that. When it comes to the stuff I've been saying, people been watching like a hawk. People that I'm not even friends with, watching like a hawk, listening to the stuff I'm saying, going back, you know what I'm saying, taking what I'm saying instead of sharing and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of annoying to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just really tired of it, but I can't do nothing about it. And it's really sad that people that don't never share. I don't think I've ever had anybody to share the stuff that I say, like, and I'm one of those people who, when I see somebody saying something interesting, I'm gonna share, support, like, subscribe, all of that, but I never get that back. but it's all good. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, you know, the universe wants you to see how things is. So anyway, I had been trying to put this information out for like 2 years now. It started when around the eclipse, and I just been getting so much hell. Like my posts be getting deleted. My people been trying to hack into my stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just been so much. But anyway, so um, a lot of people be wondering how I can tell this stuff. Well, I've been telling people for the longest that I remember coming here on the spaceship from being a little girl, and that's why I can say that the movie Avatar was basically the truth about how things is basically not the whole storyline, but it's basically there's truth to. Let me tell you the movies that they got the truth to our story. Avatar, the Black Panther, Truman, um, what's that other? Oh, the Wizard of Oz, the Wiz, and even the person who made the Wizard of Oz in 1901, they had a little book that was called. I just read the book. I mean, heard the book not too long ago. What is it, Dot and Tot or something like that, and that basically is is like a little old school, old antique style storytelling of the same story I've been telling people forever. You know what I'm saying? But they use it in reference to dolls, and like in 2009 I was telling people about how when I was on a spaceship I remember seeing this big old doll house, well, this thing that looked like a doll house. But anyway, you know I'm just the point that I'm trying to make is that there's a whole lot of things that have been trying to let people know what the story is. You know what I'm saying? But it was meant for me to be a part of telling what the story is because I was a significant part of this story. My bloodline, I can tell you who my ancestor was in BC. You know what I'm saying? I can tell you who my ancestor was in BC. And so, um, Louisiana plays Louisiana and Mississippi play a huge part in the American story. Like that's literally the parent race, um, the parent group of the American people, Louisiana and Mississippi. Look at it as the mother and father of the American people, Louisiana and Mississippi. Now, Louisiana, like I said, Louisiana is what you would call the left eye of Horus. Now, why do I say that? Louisiana is the left eye of Horus. In the story about Horus, when he was trying to avenge his father's death, he got into a battle with his uncle Set, right? So when Horus and Set got into a battle, the mythology says that Horus lost his left eye. What this basically is saying is talking about how the people, the lineages lost sight of things, how they weren't able to see the truth anymore. They weren't able to see anymore because they were put into like a blindness. They were put into a state of blindness. You know what I'm saying? And this is how we were able to fall for the We From Africa story, because we were put into not only an amnesia, but we were put into a state of blindness where we can't see what's right in front of us. Now, let me tell you the positive and the negative around this particular situation. You know how people constantly saying, "Oh, New Orleans not a real place. New Orleans is not. New Orleans is haunted. New Orleans is a portal. New Orleans is not real. All these New Orleans got ghosts. All this stuff." The reason why people feel like that is because New Orleans is a cloaked area. So yeah, in a sense, it is a portal, and people think that they be visiting New Orleans. Um, what it is, some of the people that come to New Orleans is not really coming here. They think they coming here, but they're really in Avatar. They have to come into like a certain type of body type to come into. Everybody is not allowed into the real New Orleans. New Orleans is a sacred space. New Orleans is a sacred space. This is not to divide New Orleans and Louisiana. Let me say that. We the same bloodlines. This is not to divide New Orleans and Louisiana or to make New Orleans better than Louisiana or Mississippi. We the same family. What I'm saying is this is a sacred space. And so we have the real New Orleans, and then the um we have the real New Orleans, which is cloaked and covered, is shielded. It's a sacred space because we are Louisiana has the bloodlines that hold the most ancient information, right? And with the most ancient information comes our power, right? And so everybody is not able to have access to New Orleans, the real New Orleans. So some people come here and you think you coming into the real New Orleans, but you coming into this uh how do I say it? This false realm around New Orleans, right? And so it's an interactive type of thing. So yeah, you get to experience some of New Orleans when you're in the false realm around New Orleans, right? Now, one of the things that happens is when you come into that false realm of New Orleans, a lot of times it's because we are situated around what they call this mirror. If you come here and you just not right type of person, your energy is kind of messed up, you most likely gonna have a bad experience in New Orleans. You might not like the food. You know what I'm saying? You might say this, that, and the third about it. If you come to New Orleans with the right kind of spirit, you usually typically gonna have a good experience in New Orleans as far as with the people, the food, stuff like that. If your spirit is kind of just messed up, you probably gonna have a little messed up experience. You know what I'm saying? So the real New Orleans, like I said, is a cloaked, covered, shielded place because it's a sacred space. And this is why you hear in the voodoo sector, you might hear of the gates of Guinea, or you might hear of Baron Samedi being the one to open the gates and stuff like that. And not just anybody can come into real New Orleans. Like you literally have to have either a lineage or you have to have like some type of pass key, right? And just because you do voodoo don't mean you get to get into the real New Orleans. Some people that's in the voodoo, a lot of people that's into the voodoo think they a part of New Orleans culture and they really not. You know what I'm saying? So New Orleans is a shielded place. Now the word New Orleans itself is New Horror Lens. HOR for Horus. Lens, Lens or Lenz like I spell it, which means the eye of Horus, right? The new eye of Horus. Now, why new eye of Horus? Because the first eye of Horus was destroyed in a battle with Set. So that's why it's New Orleans. See, we are people of sound, so they why okay, so the ancestors, the great mother, the matriarch, they needed to make sure we be able to get back to this information. And so they put the names of certain things related to our lineages a certain way so that the sound can make you remember the truth, right? But people weren't able to catch it, so they told me I have to be like a communicator, right? Okay, so that's why you have New Orleans named New Orleans, to get back to the new Horlands, the new lens of Horus, right? Louisiana is the wizards of Eanna. Eanna means heaven. So we the wizards are the wise ones of heaven. That's what Louisiana's is. And the whole Wizard of Oz story is relative to Dorothy coming back to Louisiana. And this is why if you notice in the beginning scene of The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy first comes across out of that tornado, right? Or the Hurricane Katrina, when Dorothy comes out of the across when she gets to when she first gets to the land of Oz, right? You're gonna see a house sitting on a curb. Like I could tell you, I had a picture of this house when I first came back from Katrina, and it sat just like that. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, "Oh Lord, that looked like the house on the Wizard of Oz." I promise you. I hope I can find that picture. But that's why that house is situated like that on the path that Dorothy first stepped on, because that house represents the ninth ward. First of all, it represents the ninth ward around Tupelo Street. And was it Tupelo or Caffin? I gotta remember if it was Tupelo or Caffin. But that house right there represents where Dorothy landed after Hurricane Katrina, right? And then the path that she goes to, you see the little huts and stuff. It's supposed to represent the Munchkin land. What's the first beginning letters in Munchkin land? M-U, Moo, right? So Dorothy was returning back to Moo. So the mirror, I mean, so where was Moo? Okay, when you see that opening scene in The Wizard of Oz, you're gonna see Moo. You're gonna see that little pond area, that little pond right there. And on one side of the pond, you're gonna see that little house that was knocked down after the tornado or hurricane. And then on the other side, you're gonna see the little village houses in the Munchkin land. This is because Dorothy was at the border of this mirror realm, which is New Orleans versus the land of Oz, or which is um, where Dorothy left Kansas to come into Oz, right? That was the intersection or the borderline of New Orleans um, at the Hurricane Katrina point to the to the initiation line of going back to the roots, right? Into Mu. Munchkin land is Mu Netchi or Netchi, like Natchez and like Netcher. Natchez, Netcher. That NTCH or the NCH represents the divinity in Louisiana bloodlines, right? And then kin, Kin, relative. So Munchkin land is the land relative to the power and the magic of the people of Mu, right? That's what Munchkin land. So that's the beginning of the journey in the land of Oz. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take this into a part two. Y'all stay tuned, stay with me, and please share my videos. If I'm not gonna beg nobody to share it. You share, you share. You don't, you don't. Peace.